Today we're going to be building a survey form in the browser. You can see it here that this is the project we're going to be working on. I also have a blank slate. We're going to start from a blank slate and work all the way up to the final product, as you can see here. So let's get started. In my folder on my desktop, I have multiple files within a folder. I have the final product of HTML and CSS for the survey. I have a notes file as well, so notes.txt, just to explain, how is everything working. And then as a final, starting point, we've got index.html, clean slate here. We've got the CSS. For the CSS, I wanted to make it really simple, so you can see I've made some comments. Essentially, we're going to style the background, we're going to style the form, we're going to style the fields, and then the submit button. So all nice and neat right there. And that is it. That's everything. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So we can close out of these. Now, the first thing we want to do is we can carry over our notes just so we have that with us. And we have a survey container. We have the header for the survey. But let's go ahead and add the form. So to do that, we can use a form element. We're going to use two attributes. We're going to do the action. Where is this form going? It's going to go to a server endpoint such as like /submit. And what's the method for working with this data? And so we're going to use post. That's the most most common one that you'll be using. Next, we want to add the fields. And so the first field we want to add is a name field. We want to add a name. So we can go ahead and use, for every form field, there's two types. You're going to want to use the form input element, and then the other part is the label. So input and label. And so you're going to go ahead and put label the input. We're going to go and say, hey, all inputs have, you're going to start seeing the similarities. They're going to have similar attributes. So type is one of those. Type is, what type of input field are we doing? It's just going to be a text field. And then we're going to say, what is the ID of this field? It's going to be the name. We're going to say we want the name attribute, and that's going to be name. And we're going to say, we can say that this is required. We can go ahead and do that. And then for the label, so that's step one. And we can also just go ahead and add the email as well, just to show. So input, instead of text, we're going to use email as the type. So email has a specific type. Text is a bit more generic, more standard, but email has a bit more flavor to it. So we can go ahead and ID add email, name, we can add email, and we can also say this is required. Now with inputs, you need to have the label, what you're going to see in the browser, because if we just look at it now, we don't really see anything. Oh, let's actually go live with this. There we go. Okay. So you'll see that there's nothing there. There's just the boxes. But we want to actually add, a bit more usability and context. And that's, to do that, so that's going to be with a label. And we can say, hey, label, what is this label for? This label's for the input field with the ID of name. So the for attribute always has a value of whatever the ID is for that input. And then we can say, how do we do it here? We say name. So we can go ahead and just say name. And we could, go ahead and say email for this label. And one thing I'll mention is, so we're going to be comparing to the final product here. What you can also do is, design your survey, whatever you want to build. First, have some notes of what you'd like in your survey or your form, but then also you can design it, make a mock-up, make a wireframe in Figma as a way to build this out. But in this case, we're just doing a comparison here. It's much easier to start coding once you have a version that you can look at. So we've got name and email. Perfect. The next thing we want is, how satisfied are you with the service? So this one's going to be a little bit different. How satisfied are you with our service? So unlike standard form fields that have a label and an input, we're gonna first have a label, how satisfied you are with the service, and then we're gonna have labels actually wrapping our satisfaction levels. And that's because we are using these as radio buttons. So we're gonna use still input. The type is gonna be radio. We don't need an ID because the label's wrapping input, so it's self-implied that it's associated. We do need a name. We do need we can just say name actually, and then we say value. That's what it is, value, and then we can say, oh, we want this to be very satisfied. So name satisfaction, like so. Okay. And then we're gonna do the label text is gonna be here. So underneath the input, like so, very satisfied, like so. Okay. We can also, for some assistance, we can go ahead and we can add some break tags here. We're gonna do more styling later, but we can add, just some break tags for now, just to get things on different lines. We can say, oh, let's put that on a new line as well. Oh, let's do. Okay, now let's add the other ones. Okay, so we got very satisfied. We want to do this again. So we're just going to copy it, make it easy. So input type radio stays the same, satisfaction, name, the value. We're going to change it to satisfied. Let's go ahead and do that. And one thing I'll mention is, so the name is more like server side, you can say. The name serves as the key and the value is the value. We're specifying the value here because there's no place to type. So in other form fields, the value is what you type in the box. So like name and email, this is going to be the value. And then the name attributed will be the key. In this case, it's a radio button, so there's no place to type. So we have to specify the value here. And then let's go ahead and do this again. So we'll say neutral this time. Neutral. And also the name, stays the same. So we want only one key to whatever value is decided. We're associating, all these. If we had different names, that would make a mess of our form. So we want to keep the name the same. And we can say this one is value is going to be neutral. And then we're going to do it one more time. And we're going to say dissatisfied. Okay. See how that's going. Great. Okay. How satisfied are you with the service? Very satisfied. Let's change this to very satisfied, satisfied, neutral. Oh, here we go, the text. Let's change that. Okay. Very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied. So the difference here, we're wrapping the label around the input. That also allows the whole area to be clickable. So even though we don't click in the circle, if we click satisfy the text, that will also be clickable. So that's one benefit of doing the label wrapping around the input. Now, the next thing we want to do is suggestions. And so that's going to just be a text area box. And so we're going to do text area. And we know that since we're specifying a bit more specific what this field is, we don't need the ID. We can say the name, though, is suggestions. And we can say this is required if we want. Why not? And then we can add a label. And we can say this is going to be suggestions, question mark. And then we can say label for, label for suggestions, and we need the ID. We don't need the type because it's already specified, but we do need the ID. And there we go. text area, suggestions, and then as a final, we can do the drop down. How did you hear about us? So we can do, this is going to be a select drop down. So again, we're specifying the type within the tag, so we don't need to use type. We do need to say, you know, ID. Let's see. Let's call it referral. Let's do name, referral. Let's make it required. And let's add a label. How did you hear about us? And we can say label for referral, like so. Starting to take shape. And then within a select, you need the options. So option, the value is going to be, what were the values? I have friend, social media, advertisement, other. So friend, social media, advertisement, other. Friend, social media, advertisement, and other. Okay. Friend, social media, advertisement, other. Let's go to the right form here. Friend, social media, advertisement, other. Perfect. Okay. And we want the value. We can say friend, social media. We can say advertisement. And I'm, you know, just keeping it to one word or using a dash if it's multiple words. And then I can say other here. And we want this to fall to a new line. Let's make some more break tags. So I'm just, you know, you can size up and move around your fields within CSS, you know, just to make this tutorial a bit easier and use less CSS. We're using some, you know, break tags, but you could also, you know, just go straight to the CSS to style your form. So there we go. And perfect. And so, and then we've got the value here. Since again, there's no place to put text or type in a field, the value, so we have to specify the values here. And then we associate, you know, what is the key? And the key is going to be referral for this form field. And then we want, as a final step, we want the submit. And for the submit, we want to say, hey, let's actually make this input type submit, and then we're going to say the value is submit, I believe. Let's just double check. Submit. Yes, it is. Okay. Great. And we can also, you know, break this up a bit more. Okay. So we're making progress here. So we've just added all the fields. How did you hear about us? Suggestions. We can even, let's put suggestions. Add a break tag there just to get it on a new line. Okay, so it's starting to take shape. We've got the main, you know, main meat of everything. Customer feedback survey. Now we can start styling as the next step. So we can start with the background, which is going to be the body. And we know we want to put this in the center, so display flex. We're using flex to move it. It's one of the, you know, the easiest ways to do it, I would say. Justify content center, align item center. You'll use that often if you ever want to center with flex. Justify content, align items. You know, you're going to put that in the center here. We want the background color. So let's go ahead and take the body background here. So we can say background color space. Okay, we're starting to take shape. Now we also want to go ahead and give the form some color. So we can do that next. So the form, or actually, sorry, let's do the whole thing, which is actually our survey container. So survey container to do so. This is like an element selector just by naming the tag. This is a class selector because we're using a period and then targeting the name of the class, which is, this attribute here. So survey container. And then we want to say background color. Let's grab the form background. Oh, it's just going to be white. Okay. It does need some padding. So we can add 20 pixels. We can give it a border. And we can say we use the color for the border. So form border. Let's grab this. Okay. So we can say 2 pixels solid, give it a color purple. Okay. There we go. You'll see that also the form has a curve here. So we want to add a border radius. So we can say border radius 1%, like so. Okay. Perfect. Now we want to, let's do the form fields, and let's grab those. So form fields we can do, let's see. Let's do the button first. Let's do adjust that, and button text, button background. There we go. This is the color we want. Okay. So let's go ahead and do let's do the button, which is going to be input type equals submit background color. Let's see. Okay, let's see if that worked. Okay, great. We want the color to be white. Okay, great. And we want a bit more padding, and it doesn't look like there's a border of none. Get rid of the border. Great. Let's go ahead and add some padding. We can say, so padding, it goes, say 2 pixels top bottom, 4 pixels left right. Let's just see how that looks. Let's try 4 pixels, 8 pixels. Let's make it a little bit bigger. 8, 16. Okay, that's a little bit better. How are we looking? So just more eyeballing it here. We can say border radius. We can say 2%. How does that look? Let's do 5%. Let's see. Let's do 10%. So it's more like eyeballing it, I would say, just to see, get a feel for it. Okay. Submit. Okay. And then we can add, let's do the fields. So let's target the fields. So we can say input text area select. So input text area select. We're specifying the elements. We want the width to be 100%. Okay, like so. So with 100%, we're bringing this out farther. We want the height to be 8 pixels, right? No. Let's change that. And then we want, let's get input. We want input type equals radio, and we want to make this with auto. So essentially, there we go. We're essentially resetting it. So by default, you know, for with auto it's going to be whatever the default for that type of element, whether it's block, it's inline block, or inline. Since we've said let's make input 100%, it really messes up our radio buttons. So we are doing with auto to, you know, reset it, put it back to whatever it's automatically. Okay, what else do we need to do here? We can go ahead and let's add the color. So we want to still do the input borders. This is purple gray. So we can say border 2 pixels solid input border color. Let's take a look. Let's do 1 pixel, you know, just to give you an idea. And then we want to go ahead and we want to do the background, input background to lavender. So we can go ahead and say background. You know, with these projects, when you're ever doing this, you know, similar to what I'm doing, you know, you don't have to, you know, be perfect with it. You can, you know, goal is to try to get as close as you can to whatever you've created, but, you know, don't have to, you know, if you're trying to copy trying to match a website, trying to, you know, do a project just to test your skills, don't feel like you need to go as crazy for it. Just you try to get as close as you can, just to get the practice. And okay, we're getting there. Let's go ahead. What else do we need to do here? Suggestions. Suggestions is much bigger. Let's go ahead and back to index. We can say, hey, for suggestions, we want the rows to be 4. That should make it bigger, yes. And then we want, oh, let's go back here. Serving container, we can say min width. We can say, max width. Want it around 500 pixels. Okay. And what else do we need to do? Oh, the input fields are rounded. So we can say border radius 10 pixels. Something like that. Nope. Just try 5%. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do pixels instead. Let's do 10 pixels. How's that coming along? Okay. Let's do with auto for the submit button. It's looking wonky. Okay. And we want to make this bigger. Oh, we add just some padding, I would say, to the input fields. So padding, say 8 pixels, like so. We can bump up the padding a little bit more. Okay. We want to, how satisfied you are with service. Let's add another breakpoint. How satisfied are you with service? Okay, there we go. All right, so getting closer, we can, let's switch it back to like 20 pixels. Okay. So in general, you get the idea. Overall, this is the form. Oh, we also, let's change the font. We want to make the font sans serif, like so. There we go. We'll just do Arial. Okay, so you get the concept essentially. So you'll see, form. That's how to build a form. That's how to work it out. Whenever you try to recreate something, you might not exactly get exactly the same way there, but essentially you get the idea of building out the form and making it, a survey example in the browser. We can see as a final product, just check out some of the CSS that we did use, and you'll see here. One thing I'll mention is a couple things that are important. Actually, let's go back to ours. Here we go. So we didn't add, so a couple important things. So for usability that I just didn't get to is, for one, cursor. So if you want the user to recognize that they are about to submit something, you'll use cursor pointer. So that, for one, is going to, if we hover over the element, it changes the cursor to a pointer. We also can do the background hover. So you also, for additional input, add some more coloring to hover. So when you hover over the element, the color is going to change, like so. And we can actually do, should be able to just do this, input type, submit on hover. So we're changing it up a bit different. So you'll see color changing, like so. And you see there's multiple ways to do it. So I targeted the type submit, the input with the type of submit, which is essentially the button on hover. So you'll see that there's multiple ways. There's not a right or wrong way to do things. But that's just a little exercise just to practice. I encourage you to do something similar for yourself, to start practicing the CSS that you're working on. Using margin, padding, borders, colors, font families. In this case, we did sans serif. You can change that, sans serif, like so. But pretty close. You get the idea of building out a survey. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching.